dry season is usually the period between November and March every year. The dry season is characterized by the harmattan season, rise in temperature, dust and wind. There are environmental implications of the dry season, and there are also health implications of the dry season. On our special feature, we try to analyze the environmental issues that are prevalent during the dry season and how they can be tackled. We'll also be looking at the health issues that are prevalent during the dry season and how they can be tackled. First is a look at what the dry season entails and what are the issues, particularly as it relates to air pollution, that are most prevalent. Let's now join Ugochukwu Bamidele in the studio for Environment News.
Now here's the news on today's episode of Environment Watch. On the headlines, Nigeria highly prepared for nuclear radiation emergencies. Biosafety Agency won't compromise in genetically modified organisms deployment. And EU UNICEF to build boreholes and toilets in Cross River State. And other details. The federal government has disclosed that Nigeria currently has strong emergency preparedness for any form of nuclear and radiation incident or accident anywhere in the country. Speaking at a workshop on nuclear safety and radiological protection in Abuja, Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Authority NNRA, Mr. Lawrence Deem, said the agency had initiated a yearly program to map up radioactive materials from the system and had also developed stringent policies regarding nuclear and radioactive materials handling, transportation, storage and disposal. He stated that the NNRA also simulated emergency situations concerning radioactive materials to test the country's response to such situations if they mistakenly and eventually occurred. He disclosed that to further strengthen the country's nuclear and radiation safety and protection and also deal with cases of emergencies, the NNRA built a nuclear security center in the country and was currently gradually equipping the facility with the necessary infrastructure. He said in line with President Muhammadu Buhari's declaration and as part of efforts meeting Nigeria's international obligation on nuclear security, a nuclear security center is being established to serve as a training and coordinating center in capacity building. It's expected to be a center of excellence in Africa. The Director General of National Biosafety Management Agency, Dr. Rufus Ebegba, has said the responsibility of the agency is to safeguard the health of Nigerians in the practice of modern biotechnology and the use of genetically modified organisms. Dr. Ebegba stated this at a colloquium organized by the Catholic Secretariat in conjunction with the Open Forum of Agricultural Biotechnology in Abuja. He said the responsibility of the National Biosafety Management Agency is not to stop genetically modified organisms in Nigeria, but to ensure it is safe and it does not pose any adverse effects to humans and the environment in accordance with the National Biosafety Management Act 2015. He noted that the world is being driven by science and technology, and Nigeria cannot shy away from the deployment of safe science and technology to solve problems affecting the nation. Now, away from that, the European Union and United Nations International Children Education Fund, UNICEF, have concluded plans to fund the building of new boreholes and toilet systems in Boki and local government areas of Cross River State. The Cross River State government has opened bidding for procurement of 40 hand pump boreholes, 20 solar-powered boreholes, and 20 units of power flush latrines. Director General of the state's Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Agency, RWATSA, Mr. Ita Ikpeme, who confirmed the development, charged contractors who may eventually succeed to be serious and transparent in delivering quality jobs within the stipulated time frame. Ikpeme emphasized that the jobs were very urgent and must be completed once the contracts were awarded. He noted, however, that the terrain of some localities of Boki and Yakuru local government areas where the jobs had to be carried out were hard to reach, particularly during the rainy season. UNICEF WASH specialist in Enugu, Mr. Sa Ondo Anam, assured of the European Union and UNICEF's desire to continue to support the state government's program for the purpose of providing facilities for women and children in the state. And now the World Economic Forum recently warned that there would be more plastic than fish in terms of weight in the world's oceans by 2050. It said about 280 million tons of plastics are produced globally each year, and only a small percentage is recycled. About 13 million tons of the rest ends up in the world's oceans, costing several billions of dollars per year in environmental damage to marine ecosystem. It's, however, an improvement from the 2014 reports that over 5 trillion of toxic plastic garbage weighing about 269,000 tons is floating in the world's oceans, and the bits of the garbage distributed throughout the world. The report says these are huge problems for the oceans and predicted to get worse, noting that almost 300 million tons of plastic are produced every year and only 5% of the world's plastic is recycled. The experts forecast the volume of oceanic plastic debris will only increase due to rising production of throwaway plastic and consumers' insatiable desire for cheap and convenient plastic goods. The drive to recycle plastics or completely phase it out has been globally accepted for sustainable environment, and as such, individuals, researchers, and companies have been trying to create substitutes that will have no harm to the environment. Nigeria, being a signatory to the protocol in 2014, set a target to phasing out non-biodegradable plastics before the end of the year, but 3 years on the action of tackling the menace of non-biodegradable plastic has degenerated. And that's the size of a package on the News on Environment Watch today. I am Ugochukwu Bamidele. It's now back to Sonny Dukokosun for the rest of the program. To stay tuned.
The rainy season in Nigeria is usually from April to October, while the dry season or Harmattan season is between November to March. There is no season of the year that does not come without affecting the environment and people's lives.
Harmattan season is one of concern, especially for us environmental chemists, considering the fact that the wind blows from the Sahara Desert down south, and usually between November and March every year it happens. And because of the size fraction of the particulates that come from go along with the wind, it's of concern.
The term Harmattan actually originates from the Ghanaian language, the Akan language, and it has to do with a weather or a season that commences from end of November to towards mid-March, the year preceding the year of the Harmattan season. What that means is that assuming we are in 2017 now, between mid-November this year, later this year, signaling the preparation for Christmas and end of year activities, to mid-March 2018, there is this dry period that we experience. And how does it really come about? It is a sub-West African thing. It has to do with the northeast trade wind blowing across the Sahara Desert, okay? And as it gets along the Sahara Desert, it picks along with it dust, sand, particulate matter, and this gives the dry weather condition we experience, creating sand dust, sandstorm and dust storm. At this a period too, environmentally speaking, that you experience a lot of fire outbreak, but we'll talk about that maybe subsequently. Well, like every other weather condition, Harmattan portends both its positive impact and the negative impact. But the negative impact seems to outweigh the positive impact.
The Harmattan season is characterized by cold, dry, and dust-laden wind, which makes it different from winter, and it's typified by wide fluctuations
and the ambient temperatures of day and night with hazardous effects both on the environment and humans.
Usually the size ranges from about 0.1 micrometers to about 10 micrometers. That's the size range of the dust fractions that is usually carried along with the wind. And also the composition of these dust fractions makes it of concern, and because of the impact it can have on the respiratory system. So usually we have the respiratory, and of course the fact that it also impairs vision because it can affect eyesight. Some of the particulates can get in. But of more concern is the respiratory aspect. Usually about this period, especially those who have respiratory ailments like asthma and the rest, they usually come down with much more frequent attacks during this period. And it's related to the dust fractions. Of course, particulates have been implicated for long-term challenges. And because of the size fraction, these particulates can travel through the respiratory system and they can get to the lungs. Because if the fractions were larger, then the the hair in the nostrils as well as the fluid in the respiratory system can trap a couple of them. But the smaller the fractions, the possibility of them traveling down to the lungs, which can now cause problems for a number of persons. And also the chemical composition of the fraction is important. Studies have been carried out on the harmattan dust, and it was found out that they are composed mainly of iron and aluminium. So of course the iron, for especially those who are, it hastens certain neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer and all that. Then for aluminium, even bone and brain disorders in children have been reported. So if one is exposed excessively to these dust fractions, there's a possibility that it can predispose such ones to these ailments.
However, the harmattan or dry season also has some positive effects.
Let me quickly just touch the positive impact on a very lighter note. It is a period where we notice that there is a drastic reduction in malaria, because this period is dry, mosquitoes will not breed, and so there is a drastic reduction. So that's a positive aspect. And then two, with these days of blackout, the weather is cold enough so people sleep well at night. In fact, at the peak of the harmattan, it gets to as low as 3 degrees Celsius at night. So obviously people will sleep well. Still on the positive aspect, you also observe that or most women will confirm or testify, even those watching me now, that Oga will not likely to keep late nights again, because the weather is cold, so he comes home early enough, and couples, they copulate. And what the attendant result of that is, after the harmattan season, women get pregnant and we start to harvest a lot of babies. I mean, that's some of the positive aspects of the harmattan season.
The negative effect, however, seems to outweigh its benefits on human lives, especially on skin and hair.
Because the weather is really dry, many persons catching on it to carry out open burning, and so it could increase the chemical compositions that we should be worried about, because some of these organics will now be attached to these particulates, so it makes them much more harmful. So we would want to encourage, as much as it seems to encourage burning, we should stay away from it because of the health impact. If you notice, most places around you see smoke everywhere, and because the weather is humid, a couple of these particulates can stay in the atmosphere for longer because you don't have downward wash from rainfalls and all that. So if you have these chemical compounds attached to the particulates, they can stay in the atmosphere for long, and it means that people who are breathing can take in these for longer, and of course which would have greater health impacts for them. So we have to be watchful for these issues. So that's the current situation about harmattan dust.
The negative aspects outweighs the positive aspect. Now let's look at it from the environmental angle. Environmentally speaking, there is usually fog and mist formation, and then this affects visibility, and then due to mist formation, fog formation, cloud formation, so there's this visibility is poor. So people, you have heard of cancellation of flights because of poor visibility, cancellation of light, even people traveling on roads, people even by water. So it affects visibility, and that's why people with poor sight are not always advised. Even if you must drive, you must put on your light in a beam, because of, particularly at early mornings. And then environmentally speaking also, there is this dust storm it creates, and this dust storm, from the human angle, the eyes, the nose, the ears, the mouth are first line of receivers of this dust, and there is no way that those parts of the body cannot be irritated. And once those parts are irritated, the likely resultant effect is that for the eyes, for example, the conjunctiva of the eyes becomes inflamed, and that results in what we call conjunctivitis, what we call popularly Apollo. You agree with me? Between November, December, and part of this January we are in now, a lot of people came down with Apollo. And then it's a very bad period for asthmatic patients. Asthmatic patients, the particulates contained in the dust becomes allergen, so it can trigger asthmatic attack. So asthmatic patients are advised to carry their inhalers within this period of harmattan. And then again, there are other conditions that it can trigger. The bronchitis is another one. You see people coughing, sneezing. In fact, people have suffered from nose bleeding, what we medically refer to as epistaxis, nose bleeding, between this period because of the irritation of the respiratory system or the respiratory tract. So the dust and other, and then as the carries dust, it also goes along with it some microorganisms. It also goes with microorganisms, and these microorganisms can also trigger pneumonia in some people, because pneumonia is caused by a bacteria, pneumococcal pneumonia. So it can also be a period where people suffer from that. And then we may also look at it from the agricultural perspective. Sometimes when you hear people, well, agriculturally, because we look at the challenge for global of world food security, it's a period where most plants shed their leaves. Well, this is in contrast to what people say traditionally, that if there was enough harmattan in the particular year, the year before the other farming season, crops are not likely to do well. But I wouldn't know where they get that from. But if I'm to speak scientifically, I want to see that a period where plants shed their leaves, those leaves were supposed to be part of the process of photosynthesis. So it is likely too that they are adversely affected when they shed their leaves. So it takes time again, for them to develop those leaves, manufacture food, and for the teeming. Well, I need to be educated on how traditionally people say if there is not enough harmattan, the following year will not have enough food production. In addition, it also prevents rainfall formation. We all know about the water cycle, or what we call the hydrological cycle. That period, because of the dryness it takes and all that it constitutes, rain formation, because the cloud will not be allowed to cool to its dew point to form, to allow for precipitations to fall, either in form of rain or ice block. But you'll notice that the highest we can get will be dew, and definitely not snowfall.
It is on record that the harmattan season is notorious for high incidence of fire outbreaks, which also have environmental implications due to pollution.
I talked about fire outbreak. It's a period of course we know it shouldn't just start. By the time the fire starts, you don't know how it's going to end, particularly with this period of harmattan. Of course they are, and it's not only properties. Fire outbreak can lead to destruction of both lives and properties. And then that's a period where you notice too, if a poorly arranged furniture work was done for you, or woodwork was done, because of the dryness, it tends to warp. The furniture tend to start to, with the following the what we call seasoning, wood seasoning, the sap content and the water content of the wood, it tend to dry up, and then you start to get the best. But in the process, if it was a furniture item that was already arranged before the harmattan, of course, it will start to disfigure. So those are some of the inflammability is high, and then woodwork can also be affected. And we do use woodwork for a number of things.
When there is dew drop in the early mornings, some of these chemicals which would have been in the air for a while, some may be sulfates, aerosols and all that. So of course they can combine with depositions, wet depositions early hours of the morning to form maybe slightly acidic, the water from it would be, deposition may be slightly acidic, and of course this can affect paints because they can hasten the washing of such paints, but it's not so common because most of the aerosols, most of the compounds that can give acidic depositions are not readily associated with the harmattan wind. But of course we can have a little bit of it because the wind carries all sorts of things, all sorts of aerosols and all that, depending on the direction it's coming in from. So it could be local to a particular area. So depending on the composition of the dust, if you now have wet deposits, dew, rainfall and all that, fog settling on it, on cars, depending on the chemicals formed, it could actually hasten the color degrade the colors also of buildings, cars and all that.
There is no doubt that the harmattan season has become a way of life despite its attendant effects and impacts. What mitigation pathways are there to reduce its effects, especially on humans?
Still in the process of trying to avoid dust or limit your exposure to dust, people can wear spectacles and eye goggle as much as possible. That can also help to prevent the amount of dust that comes in, and where feasible too, you can also use a nose mask to prevent the particulates contained in the hot air and whatever and the dust from irritating those parts of the body that becomes the first line of receivers of those particulate matter or materials that you are bound to contend with. Asthmatic patients should try as much as possible to go with their inhalers. Another vulnerable group again that are hard hit in terms of this harmattan are the sickle cell patients. Because of the cold, they tend to run into crisis more often. So they should try as much as possible to keep themselves very warm as much as possible, because they are likely to run into crisis. So sickle cell attack or sickle cell crisis is imminent within this period. The dusty situation can trigger the onset of a number of airborne diseases. The harmattan period is implicated, particularly in the north. Within this period, available data, I'm in the Ministry of Health, available data reveals that the incidence of cerebrospinal meningitis is higher during this harmattan period. So people should try. I'm aware that there are the disease is immunizable, so people living in dust-prone areas should try to get themselves immunized against cerebrospinal meningitis, alongside other airborne infections. I talked about pneumonia, pneumococcal pneumonia earlier on.
One practical way is to try to reduce how much dust gets into our respiratory system and maybe our eyes too. Of course, there's these surgical masks. They sell them in most stores, medical stores. We could get them, wear them, although they're not very comfortable, but of course it will help you to reduce the amount of particulates that get into your system. And for our eyes, we want to wear eyeglasses sometimes and shades and all that. Then for those who want to burn, we encourage people not to burn things about this period. Of course, they want to make use of the appropriate waste management and practice being employed by the state, the locality. And if we do all of this, of course, our exposure levels will be low. And of course, we'll protect ourselves much more.
It's been a fun-filled day putting this show together, Environment Watch on independent television. I hope you enjoyed it while it lasted. My name is Sonny Dukukosun. Thanking you for staying with me on Environmental Watch. I'll be with you again same time next week. Till then, stay blessed and bye for now.